Russia launches Poseidon underwater drone. NATO's Atlantic cable network devastated. On April 26, 2026, at approximately 14:22 UTC, the impossible was confirmed. NATO's Allied Maritime Command detected an autonomous underwater vehicle operating at a depth exceeding 1,000 meters in the northeastern Atlantic, approximately 400 nautical miles west of Ireland, moving along a trajectory that tracked with disturbing precision the route of 14 undersea fiber optic cables connecting North America to Europe. For the first time since the Cold War, Russia has deployed the Poseidon autonomous nuclear-powered torpedo, the most terrifying weapon in the Russian arsenal, NATO designation Canyon, in waters that carry approximately 97% of all transatlantic data traffic and over $10 trillion in annual financial transactions. The submarine drone was not carrying a nuclear warhead. It did not need to. What the Poseidon demonstrated on April 26 was something strategically more devastating than a nuclear detonation. It demonstrated that Russia possesses the ability to sever the digital nervous system of the Western world at a time and place of its choosing, and that NATO has no deployed capability to detect, track, or intercept it at operational depth. How did Russia deploy a weapon that NATO intelligence assessed would not be operational until 2028? What specific capabilities make the Poseidon immune to every anti-submarine warfare system currently deployed by the Western Alliance? What happens to the global economy if even 3 of those 14 cables are severed simultaneously? And what does this deployment reveal about the catastrophic gap in NATO's underwater defense posture that the alliance has been ignoring for over a decade? Stay with us. If you want raw, unvarnished analysis, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Drop your reactions in the comments. The Poseidon is not a torpedo in any conventional sense. It is an autonomous, nuclear-powered underwater drone, approximately 24 meters long and 2 meters in diameter, propelled by a miniaturized nuclear reactor that gives it effectively unlimited range and an operational endurance measured in months rather than hours. It can operate at depths exceeding 1,000 meters, beyond the reach of any conventional torpedo, depth charge, or anti-submarine warfare sensor currently deployed by NATO. It travels at speeds estimated between 70 and 100 knots at maximum, though its typical patrol speed for long-range autonomous missions is believed to be approximately 30 knots. Fast enough to cover vast ocean distances, but slow enough to minimize acoustic signature. The Poseidon carries interchangeable payloads. In its nuclear strike configuration, it carries a warhead with an estimated yield of up to 100 megatons, designed to detonate underwater near a coastal city and generate a radioactive tsunami that would devastate a coastal zone extending dozens of kilometers inland. In its conventional configuration, which intelligence analysts believe was deployed on April 26th, it carries a sensor suite and cutting equipment designed for undersea infrastructure operations, specifically the mapping, monitoring, and if ordered, severing of undersea cables and pipelines. The Atlantic cable network is the single most critical and least protected infrastructure asset in the Western world. 14 primary fiber optic cables carry approximately 97% of all transatlantic internet traffic, financial transaction data, military communication, intelligence sharing, and government-to-government secure communications between North America and Europe. These cables are not armored. They are not guarded. They lie on the ocean floor at depths ranging from a few hundred meters near shore to over 5,000 meters in mid-ocean, protected by nothing more than a thin layer of polyethylene insulation and the assumption that no adversary would target them. That assumption has been the foundation of Western digital security for 3 decades. On April 26, the assumption was proved false. The Poseidon transited along the cable corridor for an estimated 18 hours, during which NATO anti-submarine warfare assets, despite being alerted to the detection, were unable to maintain continuous tracking. The ocean depth, the drone's minimal acoustic signature, and the limitations of NATO's deep water sensor architecture combined to create tracking gaps measured in hours. During those gaps, the Poseidon could have severed any cable on its route without detection. The economic consequences of a coordinated cable severance operation would be immediate and catastrophic. An estimated $10 trillion in daily financial transactions flow through the transatlantic cable network. The SWIFT messaging system, which processes 42 million financial messages daily, depends on these cables for transatlantic connectivity. Stock exchanges in New York, London, Frankfurt, and Paris exchange pricing data through these cables in real time. A simultaneous severance of 3 or more cables would disrupt transatlantic internet connectivity by an estimated 60 to 70%, trigger an immediate halt in electronic financial transactions between North American and European markets, create a banking crisis as institutions lose the ability to verify balances and clear payments across the Atlantic, and generate a stock market crash driven by panic and the inability to execute trades through normal electronic channels. The recovery time for cable repair at deep ocean depths is measured in weeks to months, not hours or days. Specialized cable-laying ships, of which fewer than 60 exist globally, would need to be mobilized, transit to the severance points, locate the damage on the ocean floor, and execute repairs at depths requiring remotely operated vehicles. During the repair window, the transatlantic economy would operate on degraded communication at a fraction of its normal capacity. The weapon that makes this scenario possible is protected by the ocean itself. At depths exceeding 1,000 meters, NATO's primary anti-submarine warfare tools are structurally ineffective. Sonobuoys dropped from maritime patrol aircraft have effective detection depths of approximately 300 meters. Surface ship towed array sonars have detection ranges that degrade sharply below 600 meters. Even the most advanced nuclear attack submarines in the NATO fleet, the American Virginia class, the British Astute class, the French Suffren class, are optimized for operations at depths between 200 and 500 meters and do not routinely operate at the 1,000-plus meter depths where the Poseidon transits. NATO's deep-water surveillance architecture, the SOSUS network of fixed hydrophone arrays that provided comprehensive submarine detection during the Cold War, has been partially decommissioned and inadequately maintained since the 1990s, creating detection gaps across vast swaths of the Atlantic that deep-diving autonomous vehicles can exploit. In Washington, the implications of the Poseidon deployment are generating classified assessments that reportedly describe the underwater drone as the most consequential asymmetric capability Russia has deployed since the introduction of nuclear weapons themselves. In London, the Royal Navy is confronting the reality that its 6 Astute-class attack submarines, the most advanced conventionally powered underwater platforms in the European arsenal, cannot operate at the depths where the Poseidon patrols. In Brussels, NATO's Maritime Command has acknowledged in classified briefings to alliance defense ministers that the alliance has no currently deployed capability to reliably detect, track, and neutralize an autonomous underwater vehicle operating at 1,000-meter depths in the open Atlantic. In Beijing, China's submarine force is studying the Poseidon deployment with intense professional interest because China faces the same strategic problem in the Pacific. American undersea cable networks connecting U.S. military installations in Japan, Guam, and Australia are equally vulnerable to deep-water autonomous threats, and the technological pathway demonstrated by Russia is one that China's own autonomous underwater vehicle programs are actively pursuing. In Moscow, the Poseidon deployment is the culmination of a strategic concept that Russian naval doctrine has been developing since the early 2000s. The concept of holding Western critical infrastructure at risk below the reach of Western defenses, creating a deterrent lever that does not require nuclear escalation to impose catastrophic consequences. The message is precise and has been received in every NATO capital. If the West crosses a Russian red line in Ukraine, in the Arctic, in the Black Sea, or in any theater where Russian vital interests are engaged, Russia possesses the ability to sever the digital and financial nervous system of the Western world without firing a shot above the surface, without crossing the nuclear threshold, and without triggering the kind of visually dramatic attack that would unify Western public opinion behind a retaliatory response. The cable severance scenario is the gray zone's deepest nightmare, an attack that causes catastrophic economic damage while remaining ambiguous enough in attribution to prevent a clear military response. First, the Poseidon deployment has demonstrated a capability gap in NATO's underwater defense posture that is structural, not fixable with incremental adjustments. Closing this gap would require the development and deployment of an entirely new class of deep-water autonomous defense vehicles, deep-water sensor networks, and submarine systems optimized for operations below 1,000 meters, a development program that would take 15 to 20 years and hundreds of billions of dollars. Second, the vulnerability of the transatlantic cable network is the most dangerous single point of failure in the Western economic system. 14 cables carry 97% of transatlantic data. The destruction of 3 to 5 of them would trigger an economic crisis exceeding the 2008 financial collapse in speed, if not in scale. Third, the Poseidon creates a new category of deterrence, infrastructure deterrence, that operates below the nuclear threshold but above the conventional threshold. In a strategic space where the West has no established response doctrine, no deployed countermeasure capability, and no institutional framework for managing a crisis that is simultaneously military and economic. Fourth, the deployment reveals that Russia's asymmetric strategy is more advanced, more sophisticated, and more operationally mature than Western intelligence assessments have acknowledged, raising uncomfortable questions about what other capabilities may exist that Western surveillance has not yet detected. April 26, 2026 will not be remembered as just another day of geopolitical tension. It will be remembered as the day the Western world discovered that the most critical infrastructure sustaining its economy, its communications, its financial system, and its military coordination lies undefended on the ocean floor, vulnerable to a weapon it cannot detect, operating at a depth it cannot reach, deployed by an adversary that has just demonstrated it knows exactly where the cables are, exactly how to reach them, and exactly what happens to the Western economy when they stop carrying data. The old security was surface security, carriers, aircraft, satellites, the visible instruments of power. The new vulnerability is below the surface, in the silent darkness of the deep ocean, where 14 fragile cables hold the modern world together. What do you think NATO should do? Invest in deep water defense or accept the vulnerability as permanent? Drop your answer in the comments. We read every one. If this opened your eyes, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until next time, stay sharp.